happened to you, we wouldn't have known to go see this mysterious bone lady or even to look for one. And not 3 seconds later, a mysterious dark shape comes out of the boundary and knocks Chase right on his fucking ass. But it doesn't go for Chase. No, whatever it is goes right for Kaylin. Grabs around her, I imagine her leg, and starts pulling her towards the boundary.
She starts screaming for Richard. He grabs her hand, and they're both being fucking pulled into the underworld.
He is not letting go for anything.
They got his woman, you know? Zed tries to throw some fire, and his fire just fucking vanishes. He gets hit by another dark thing.
Yeah, and he becomes incapacitated himself.
Richard starts trying to wrap his feet around the shit on the ground to try and, like, get some
traction?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's holding on to Kaylin. He ain't letting go of her for nothing.
Right, but everything's dead, so it's just breaking apart and pulling out, and he can't get any purchase on the ground.
Quite literally turning to dust in his hands.
Right.
How frustrating would that be?
Right. It gets a little bit, like, uncomfortable because he starts to realize that he can't grab anything without his hands. So he starts having to yell at Kaylin to hold his waist. And the thing wrapping around her is, like, undulating, and Richard gets the sword yanked free. The green light is flooding around them. His worst fears are coming true, and he can't reach the thing. Kaylin is still wrapped around his legs and his waist, and he can't fucking reach it because it's right around her legs and her ankles. He starts screaming at her to let go, but she's too fucking scared.
And I mean, rightfully so. But right here is a pretty focal point of, spoiler alert, what becomes Richard and Kaylin's relationship from this point forward. They trust each other. They love each other, so to speak. They had this weird moment earlier. I guess you could call that love. I guess that's all I mean. But they've also all demonstrated this weird thing. It was like, hey, do this thing. Don't fucking ask questions. And they do it. They've all weirdly proven this trait to one another, but it requires some faith to do. And Richard's looking at Kaylin like, hey, you need to let go of your lifeline so I can save you. And Kaylin has to make a choice. Now, in the last episode, we talked about how Kaylin is 100% willing to kill a friend to make sure that she saves the mission. I imagine that at this point, Kaylin is feeling that same sense of burden when Richard says, hey, I will save you. You need to let go. That's kind of like Richard saying, hey, we can continue the mission, but you need to let go of me and trust that I'm going to save you so we can continue the mission.
Ugh.
The sheer complexity of it, of everything that could have been rushing through Kaylin's head in that instant, is just mind-boggling.
I don't want to say enjoyed, but the fact she didn't listen on the first or the second time that he yelled it at her, that he screamed it at her, because she is fucking terrified. It took him, I think, like 4 times to be like, fucking let go, or we're gonna die. I'm not gonna let them get to you, before she finally looks at him with her face contorted. She's in pain, and she screams and lets go. It's not just like an easy decision for her, like you're saying. It's probably like a, I'm probably gonna die moment.
That last scream was her death rattle.
Right.
Man, she was going all in at that point.
Right. His father reaches out, the blade goes through the barrier, and the thing that looks like his father at the same time. And he doesn't even flinch. He turns to go to the thing that has Kaylin, and she screams, no, it's my sister, you can't.
But Richard just cut his father in half. Because he knows, yeah, that sounds terrible, but he knows that it's not really his dad.
Right.
And so he knows that this really isn't Kaylin's sister, and so he gets put in a super awkward situation because I'm going to kill your sister. Now look, let go and I'll save you. Maybe he's capable of some pretty fantastic acrobatics, and maybe he's able to save me. But just hold on while I murder your sister in front of your eyes isn't quite the same ask.
I also wonder if that whole time that it was wrapped around her ankles, it was like her sister, so the whole time she was clutching onto Richard and screaming in pain. If she thought her sister was pulling her into the underworld that whole time?
Maybe she was getting an argument, much like Richard was giving her, but from the other side.
Right. Was that whole time like a agonizing like back and forth for her to where she was like, I want to go with my sister who's yanking me into the underworld, but also I want to stay with you, Richard.
That's probably what it was.
But Richard chops that thing off, and he grabs her and runs the fuck out of the green light. And once they're well away, she gives him a nice big hug, and he's not done.
Richard at this point fulfills every sense of the word hero. He sets Kaylin down. He's like, cool, you're saved. I got 2 more motherfuckers that need saving.
Right.
And he takes off. You know, just like any fireman would, just like any first responder, they head towards the danger.
Before he does, Kaylin tries to run back, and Richard pulls her back and then angrily pushes her down and tells her to stay here.
Yeah, it's a power move.
He's like, bitch, you can't handle yourself around this. You need to stay by the horses. I'ma handle it.
Even if she could, I feel like Richard at this point feels very protective over Kaylin.
Yeah.
Especially after the talk they had, where she pretty much put herself on display as, yeah, I have kind of feelings for you too, but there's something bigger at work here.
Yeah.
It can't work, but there's something there. And so Richard is feeling very tuned into this girl, and he's not going to let anything happen to her.
Right, and I mean, I get she just had her sister murdered in front of her or whatever. I know she's a little bit more fragile than Richard is, but I just thought it was funny that he was like, fucking stay. I'm gonna go. He finds Zed in a heap unconscious, and this black thing that's coming out at him gets chopped back to a stump when he swings his sword at it, and it like slithers back into the boundary, so he brings Zed back to Kaylin and goes looking for Chase. He finds him under a log with a gash on his fucking forehead, just bleeding away.
So it's at this point that Richard is faced with a real fucking problem. He can't lift Chase with just one arm, but he's damn sure not going to put his sword away. So what is he to do? This is a really serious situation. If I don't get you out of here, you're going to die. If I put my sword away, we're both going to die. And that's not the outcome we want to have here. So what is a guy to do? Luckily, Richard is pretty quick on his feet. He decides that he can keep his sword out if he drags his friend through this area. And luckily, the grass was kind of dewy and slick, so it kind of made dragging Chase through this material easier.
I just imagine Richard with his sword out and one hand behind him just tugging this big-ass man from underneath the log. Like, it's just such a funny thing, because he can't move the log. The log is too heavy, and Chase is wedged underneath it. But apparently he just fucking grabbed onto him and just started pulling until he pulled out from underneath that log, and then he just trucked through with him.
Well, I think Richard kind of noticed the seriousness of the situation. There might not be a hearthound right there waiting for him, but there just as well might be.
No, right. No, I agree. I just, it's a funny sight, because when I tug on things like that, it's not exactly graceful. Maybe he's more graceful than me, but...
Oh, I doubt it. Chase is a big dude. I made that pretty clear. Richard struggled to move this guy.
So, Richard isn't really sure if the things in the boundary are dead, and he's not really sure what the magic of the sword can do. Kaylin, once he gets back, asks what they're gonna do.
And Richard says, well, we can't leave him here, and we can't stay here, so why don't we put him on the horses and move him that way? Now, Chase was harder to lift, and his wound gushed blood, which would make me fucking nervous. I don't even know if we should move this guy at all, but yeah, we're gonna toss him on a horse, which is obviously hard because Richard had to drag him through the mud to get him here, and it wasn't exactly an easy thing.
So far, when people have been hurt or going a little crazy around Richard, he has attempted to heal them with his mind. And for Chase bleeding the fuck out on his horse. He's just like, whatever. I'll put a leaf on it. And let's fucking go, bud.
It does make it seem like it's pretty easy for him to handle. But he did have to make the choice to try and heal him at all, as opposed to just getting the fuck out right now.
I mean, I guess. I feel like he was a little bit irresponsible and just being like, yeah, I'll just stick a leaf to your head. We'll be fine. The mist is getting heavy. He doesn't know how best to protect Kaylin, so he rides next to her. Zed and Chase weren't tied on, so they keep slipping, and they have to go real slow. Everything looked the same, and falling trees were everywhere. And Richard keeps spitting out fucking mosquitoes.
Gross.
Yeah, it's gross. You know, on a motorcycle, how you feel when you, like, get a bug in your mouth or in your face? This, like, on a late night, going slow down a road. That's how he's feeling right now.
Yeah, you smile, but you keep your lips closed.
Mm-hmm. Talk quick to each other and shut that shit.
At the very least, we're not navigating by the moon, which I'm sure Richard is.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's misty and overcast, apparently.
Well, the moon and the trees. He was using the trees to kind of make sure that they were going in the right direction. But the mist was making it difficult. If you can't see your fucking marker, then how are you supposed to see anything? And he had no idea if they were just walking in circles. And eventually he had to admit that, yeah, I'm fucking lost.
Yeah, he didn't know what they were going to do if they couldn't get out by dark. Because Chase didn't say why they had to make it to the swamp, but just that they did have to make it to the fucking swamp before nightfall. And things had started to look different, okay? Shadows are watching them at this point, and he's starting to get fucking angry.
I think it's safe to say that if you feel like shadows are watching you, you're beyond paranoid, and you're probably not in a place that you should be.
Unless the shadows really are watching you.
Well, then you need to leave the place that you are immediately.
Well, he's trying to, and he eventually finds the trail. No change has happened in Zed, and Chase's wound has stopped bleeding. At this point, Richard isn't really sure if they've been knocked unconscious by magic or just by, like, blunt force trauma. So he's just gonna keep hoping that they're gonna be okay.
Yeah, all he can really do at this point is try to stop the bleeding and get them to a safe area where they can inspect the wounds further and try and treat them a little better.
So he looks at Kayla and he says, well, Chase said to get to the swamp. We better fucking get there. They clean the wound and give both Zed and Chase some blankets. Kaylin hugs Richard and says, thank you. The boundary fucking scares me. And if you remind me of what I said to you earlier about not coming back for me, I'll kick you.
So she kind of conceded a little bit.
Yeah.
She's like, hey, no, I get it. Totally come back for me, please.
Right. She was like, totally appreciated that shit you did back there.
Hell yeah. Well, as bad as it could be for the mission, it's also a very important thing to have trust in your, I guess, teammates, your crew, your group, your clan, whatever it is you're called, that you can trust those people, that they are going to come back for you.
Yeah.
All is not lost just because you're having a hard time. You're there together.
Yeah.
You're going to get through it together. It was weird in the last chapter. I wanted to say it in the last episode, but now I get to. It was weird that everybody was going around proving how much they didn't give a fuck about the next person in the group.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I love you, man, but not more than the mission. You can go kick rocks if it comes to you or the mission. And I like in this chapter how they're like, okay, yeah, we are all duty bound, but I still care about you. Like, we're still in this shit together. I'm not going to just throw you away for no reason.
Because if you can just do that to the people closest to you, then you really don't have that much humanity anyways, and what's the point in you saving all of mankind?
Right, you're probably not that close to these people anyway, then.
Yeah, you're a piece of shit then. But whatever.
Well, it was either go forward or go back, he decides. Nightfall came, and they hadn't even made the swamp. And far off in the distance, they hear the sound of howling.
The heart hounds are coming.
That's right. And now, after all of that shit, they've got a real fucking problem. Now, I'm not really sure what they